This is Agent Provocateur with Allan Walsh and Adam Wylde.
And we're back. Welcome to another Agent Provocateur. I am off the plane from Milan, back in LA. Bronze medal game is in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Gold medal game tomorrow morning. Adam Wylde, how are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to hear about your adventure. I obviously saw some pictures and that sort of thing on your Instagram, Allan, but you got to go to Milan and see it all. And as usual, you leave before the big games. Like I noticed you do this with the World Juniors sometimes too, is you come for the round robin and then you kind of leave. And that, as a fan, seems like anticlimactic. I have to ask, what's the strategy there?
Well, I'm going over there not solely as a fan, although a little bit of the fan in me does come out. I'm going over there as an agent and as an agent doing business. I spend a lot of time with clients' families, other people in the hockey world to meet. There's a significant amount of GMs over there, from Billy Guerin to Doug Armstrong to Julien Brisebois, Kyle Dubas, Don Sweeney. There's people to see on all the different teams, federations. So I'm working. And I brought my wife with me over there, and she's used to me working 24/7. We did get to she came with me. She's a trooper. She came with me to all the games, including days when there were 2 games in one day in different arenas on opposite sides of town, 2.5 hours from each other. Start times, one game ends and the next one starts up in 2.5 hours. It's an hour and a half to get over to the other rink. Those are long days. But overall, I'm going over there for a different purpose than just being a straight fan going to a game.
Well, of course. And how much business actually gets done at the Olympics? I know, it is business and that sort of thing. And we do have a trade deadline, coming up in a couple of weeks here. It's 13 days away as of this recording. Is there a lot of business getting done outside of the Olympics, or is it kind of focused on that?
There is some business going on, and it was important for me to be there and to have some of the conversations that I had leading up to the deadline. But also it was the first Olympics since 2014. And
Right.
For players and families, and I think also for agents, it's important to go over there and see how everything is working, ways that things could be improved for the future. I think everybody from the PA to the league to agents and players are all taking notes. And I think that in 4 years in the French Alps, in 8 years in Salt Lake City, it's only going to get better and better.
Right. I mean, it seems like it's been a successful tournament, and it seems like, at least back home here, Allan, it's been really, really, really well received. And obviously we've got the final that I think North Americans hoped we would get, which is USA Canada. I'm curious about, from your perspective, internally, things that you've heard, that sort of thing. How is this being looked at in NHL circles?
It's an incredible success.
Oh, good.
And,
Okay.
And it goes to show how misguided the league was,
Yes.
and the owners were, and Gary was, in not having the players go to the Olympics since 2014. It's the world stage. Hockey is the predominant sport of the Winter Olympics. But here's something that has surprised me. When you're over there, you get the sense, especially when you're attending games, that hockey is in the eye of the hurricane. When you come, and in Canada, with their rights holder, with Sportsnet, it certainly is. But then you come over to the US back here, and NBC is not treating hockey like it should. And it is being relegated to streaming or other networks. and it is not on NBC. Of course, Gold Medal Game will be on NBC, but they don't even send a full crew over to broadcast the games. And some of the games are being broadcast with people doing play-by-play from their offices in Connecticut, calling the game off a screen. And it just, you get the feel, and I didn't really get a sense of this, but this is in talking to people over here who didn't go. There's a lot of disappointment from the league, from the PA, and from fans on how NBC, which had NHL rights for a long time and no longer has them, is sort of treating the NHL as and the Olympic hockey as second-class citizens.
Is that part of it, though? Is that there's maybe, is it sour grapes? Is it, well, this isn't our sport full time, so we don't care? I mean, it shouldn't matter with the Olympics, but I just wonder.
If NBC had NHL rights, it would be a completely different tone and focus on their broadcast.
See,
no question.
Then you kind of have to wonder what the NHL could even do about that. Like, what could you do?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm just making an observation. I'm not the guy in the room responsible for that. I got enough problems right now going on in my life. I'm glad that's somebody else's issue.
Yeah, you're right. You know, not your circus, not your horse, or whatever it is. Okay. Listen, I think a lot of people before the tournament, and it's funny because this story has sort of disappeared, but like with a month to go, obviously there's that report out of the Athletic about how far they were behind on putting that arena together. And obviously they never got the concession stands done, so they got food trucks out back. They never got the beer concessions done either, so they've got a beer garden, I believe, out back too, where you leave the arena, come back in. I'm curious about the fan experience and the player experience at the Santa Giulia Arena. Like, what were your thoughts on it?
It felt like an arena that was just opening. Okay. That wasn't 100% completely done. Mm-hmm. It's striking when you walk in to the seats and you look over on one side, and all it is a straight black wall with looks like a curtain almost. The arena is shaped now like an amphitheater, mm-hmm. where it goes around in a big U, but on the other side there are almost no seats. Okay. So you could see at some point somebody said, "We're not going to finish this according to the original plan, and we're only going to get to there's 3,000 seats that are not there that should have been there, where they just ran out of time."
Yep.
The ice is terrible, and many players have told me. I mean, I see players falling all over the place with nobody around them. They do these, what we know as TV timeouts. They call them power breaks, where a voice says at a stoppage of play, "Power break," and all of the people come rushing out onto the ice with their shovels to scoop up snow. There's one poor schnook who comes out and he's dipping a thermometer into the ice surface, and I'm always like watching him. I'm transfixed on him, and he puts a thermometer into the ice, and he's watching it, and he's shaking his head no, which is never a good sign. Yeah, so players have told me that the ice is not great. Right. Although a few players I've asked, because some players come off after a game, they're like, "Oh, the ice was shit." And I talked to a couple of other guys, same game, and they're like, "No, the ice was pretty good."
So it's really dependent upon how much because NHL players are very particular, right? They
but let's be clear here. This is not Edmonton ice.
No.
Right. Which is the best ice in the league. It's pretty beat up and choppy out there, especially when you're playing a later game. And keep in mind, the later games started at 9:10 p.m. local time.
Wow.
Okay. That's a late start for players.
Yeah.
Those are long days preparing for games, long days playing the games. So even as a fan, go to the 9:10 game, and after the game, waiting with families for the players to come up and visit briefly. We didn't get back to our hotels until 1:30 a.m.
Right. Yeah. And how's the transit out of there? Are you driving? Are you taking a taxi? Are you, is there like a streetcar? Like what is there?
So if you take an Uber to the arena, you can't get anywhere close to the arena because all of the streets around the Santa Giulia Arena are closed.
Oh,
so here's what we figured out to be the best way to get there.
Okay.
From the hotel we were staying at, there is a metro, with a 2-minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take the metro. It's just 3 stops to the arena. You get out of the metro and there is an entire line of green buses, which are shuttles that go to the arena. You then you're probably about 1,000 meters from the arena. You get your tickets scanned, you get wanded, and then that whole area is open where you walk to the rink. But everybody inside that area already have their tickets scanned and are free to go up there.
Okay.
The big issue is after the game, if you are in a hurry to leave, you want to get out of there, there is one area for the entire arena for people to leave. And they close a gate and they're only let like 100 people out at a time. So the one time we were in a rush to get to the other arena on the other side of town, it was Row Arena, to see another game.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically herded like cattle. And I posted a picture of it. Right now Jesse's going to post the photo of what I'm talking about. You're herded like cattle into this area. And it took almost an hour just to get through this one area to get back on the shuttle and then go back to the metro station. And then from the metro station, you can pick up an Uber to go to the second rink. There's no metro that'll get you anywhere close to the second rink.
Jeez.
So logistically, there were some challenges.
But it's the Olympics and you put up with it, right?
Yeah. I am not complaining. I'm just telling everybody what it was like.
Any word back on the dressing rooms? Because the pictures, again, a month out, it was skeletal, right? Like, have the players said anything about that? Did they get them done? What are they like? I imagine they're not at NHL level, but we don't expect that. What did you? Any feedback?
The dressing rooms got done, and they're fine.
Okay, good,
yeah.
perfect. Now, you say at the league level and the PA level, it's a success, and obviously we saw early in the tournament, Luc Tardif, who's the head of the AAHF, Marty Walsh, head of the NHLPA, Gary Bettman, head of the NHL or the NHL owners. They all did a joint press conference and reaffirmed how their commitment to this and its importance. But one of the main things that happened in Sochi that led to the disappearance of the NHL from 2022 and 2018 was the fact that there was a major injury to a major star. John Tavares got injured and did not play the rest of the year, and it sort of torpedoed the Islanders' season. Now, back then, you had a very different Islanders ownership group, very different. You had a very different Islanders general manager doing their bidding publicly. And they were quite loud, Allan, about how mad they were about this. There have been injuries in this tournament. I mean, Kevin Fiala will not play again. The LA Kings they just made the trade for Artemi Panarin, right? They're making a push for the playoffs. That's a major player for them. Sidney Crosby was tackled. I don't know if there's another way to say it, by Radko Gudas. We're not sure if he's going to play in the gold medal game. Pittsburgh's, for the first time in 3 years, making a push to the playoffs. It's a big deal for them. He's their star guy, and he's 38. Are any of those singular events going to derail this process for 2030? Because we know 2028 is going to happen because it's NHL sanctioned, it's NHL owned, and the owners are going to make the profit off that, right? It's a little different. The Olympics, not so much. 2030, would there be any endangering because of these injuries that were suffered? It's kind of unavoidable.
And I don't think so. Okay. And I think everyone factors in that when you play hockey at a high level, injuries happen. My own personal feeling, is there a difference if a high profile elite player gets injured in the Olympics or 1 week before the Olympics in a regular season game or 1 week after the Olympics in a regular season game? Would it matter to the LA Kings if Kevin Fiala suffered a serious injury, and nobody wants to see any players get hurt in any way? But if Kevin got hurt, the first game back with LA or at the Olympics, does it really make a difference as to where the injury happens? Injuries do happen, and they're going to happen to players at the Olympics. That's part of what you accept in having players go to the Olympics. The question is, do the benefits for the players, for the league, for growing the game outweigh the potential risk of injury to star players? And I think the answer is yes.
Unequivocally. Yeah. I think
sometimes. And I'll tell you something else.
Please.
So something happened that was really interesting. I'm having lunch with my wife in the Duomo Square in one of the restaurants. And there is a couple sitting on the patio where we were sitting, in a covered patio in a really nice Italian restaurant right next to us. And we're pretty close together. And he's talking with his wife. I'm talking with my wife. And, he looks familiar. He thinks I look familiar. And we all start talking with each other. And it's an NHL owner and his wife.
Oh.
And he was coming over to see the games and experience, what it's like. And they were going to games, and they were spending a week over in Milan. It was the first week of the Olympics. And we ended up sitting and talking for 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking, and we had some very frank discussions about the salary cap, about the direction of the NHL, how owners feel about certain issues, how he feels about certain issues, how I feel. Our wives kind of hit it off, and they've been texting with each other since the lunch. And it was really fascinating for me to get and to process some of his observations about the Olympics. He thought NHL players should never have stopped going to the Olympics, and he's a big supporter. And he's an owner of a team that has a lot of success. They're doing very well this year. They've done very well in the past. He feels that the Olympics are great for the NHL, and does not understand why the league would not be sending players every 4 years.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear from that level, right? Yeah. I mean, listen, and I guess that's why it makes sense for a guy like you to go too, because you're just having lunch at a restaurant, and all of a sudden you run into somebody who might be completely involved in the industry, and you didn't set that meeting. That's cool. I also read an article on NHL.com. I want to know if you'd seen this. There was an article done about Milan street fashion, and obviously Milan is a fashion hub. But what they were saying in the article was that NHL jerseys have become sort of streetwear there as like a fashionable thing. A lot of Europeans and North Americans wearing their jerseys, and then the local Italians are jumping on board going, hey, those are pretty cool. Like, did you see any of that?
I saw NHL jerseys and national team jerseys all over Milan.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
All over. Yeah. Especially at the games.
Oh yeah.
And there are fans. I saw probably the number one jersey I saw, and I was just kind of keeping track. Nope, was Tampa Bay Lightning.
Really?
I saw Tampa Bay Lightning jerseys everywhere in Milan.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I wonder why that would be.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I even my wife said to me at some point, "That's a Tampa jersey, right? Like, how come there's so many of them over here?"
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's good to hear sort of that good feedback in terms of how the tournament's going. I'm curious about you sitting in those stands and experiencing, and I know you've experienced this a million times, but as a North American, one of the things that I am dying to do, and I want to do this with the Steve Dangle podcast one day, is do like a 2-week trip around some of the major hockey city centers. So like, I'm just throwing some names, like a Prague, a Berlin, Stockholm.
In Czech, the legendary crowd is in Brno, Kometa Brno.
Okay.
The fans are insane. And it's literally from puck drop to the end of the game. The chanting, the singing, the jumping up and down is nonstop.
So they're just going and go. So who were the loudest in the games that you were at? Like, who were the most engaged, loudest? Were there any traditions that you saw that you're like, man, I didn't even know that existed? Because I know you're very educated on European hockey.
Well, I might be a little biased, but the Czech games had a huge contingent of Czech fans. It's only a couple hours by car from certain cities in Czech to Milan. And I posted some video of when the fans got going at the Czech games, and they're jumping up and down chanting. And I turned to a family member of one of the Czech players, and I said, "What are they chanting?" And she said to me, "They're chanting, you are not Czech if you are not jumping." And literally the entire arena is going up and down and while they're chanting, and I took some video of it. You've never seen that in an NHL game, and you should.
Yes.
To see people waving flags and jumping up and down. And I've said before, at a lot of the European games, you've got people whose faces are all painted, no shirts on, their bodies are painted with these big drums, and they're banging drums the entire game. Just an incredible atmosphere around the games, very similar to what we've all seen at soccer matches in England or in Italy. Really cool.
That's sort of like what JJ Peterka was saying right before the Olympic break, right? He, get the drums out and the excitement. And I mean, it must be great for the European guys too to experience that again. A lot of them came up through the junior leagues, and then some of them played pro before ever coming to North America. So to have that sort of fan support again must be kind of nice.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Now I want to talk to you about one of your former clients, if I've got my history right here, Mirsolav Satan.
Yep.
Mirsolav Satan, when I was growing up, was one of the more feared guys around the league in the dead puck era. This is a guy who put 40 goals on the board in an era where the New Jersey Devils neutral zone trap basically made hockey super boring, and they had to change the rules to get around it. And Satan still scored like that back then. And I remember hating him because he was a Sabre and I was a Leaf fan. And it's like, oh, great. Another great Sabre. That's what we need. But he has behind the scenes, and I saw you tweeting about this, Allan, taken the Slovakian program, which from what I've heard was not in a great place. And I don't know how long ago it was that he kind of took over.
It was dead.
It was dead.
We went from several players a year, Slovak players, drafted in the first round of the NHL draft, to entire drafts for years without a Slovak even drafted.
So Why did he take over? Because that seems like a pretty tough task. What has he done? I'm curious about that whole story because this is a guy who made enough money. He doesn't have to work again. Right?
Well, Miro loves hockey.
Yeah.
And he is one of the most thoughtful, interesting, intelligent guys I've ever worked with. So has a wonderful life. He married a trained opera singer.
Wow.
And some of the things that Miro was reading away from the rink while he played, and he had some of his best years in the NHL, he was reading Greek philosophy. He was reading Plato. And, we'd be talking and I'd be like, hey, what's going on? And he'd be like, oh, I'm reading a really interesting book right now. What are you reading? Plato's Republic. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I read that in university.
Yeah. That's the kind and those are where his interests lie. And he's very analytical. He has a really tremendous hockey mind. And when he retired and moved back to Slovakia, he was offered the opportunity to run the Slovak Ice Hockey Federation. And he really revitalized the Slovak program in the grassroots level. And he brought in Craig Ramsey, who had coached him in the NHL, to coach their national team, and really brought a new way of looking at Slovak hockey, and got a lot of the former players that he played with of his generation to start coaching younger players again. And they rebuilt the program to where they are now, playing for the bronze medal in an hour and a half. At the Olympics.
Yeah.
And they're not a team full of stars.
No, they're not.
They play lunch pail hockey. They're workers, and they outwork other teams, and they play smart. They are not really deep in any particular position, but they seem to now always have success on the international level. And like all things, there are people who are critics of some of the things that Miro has done in Slovakia. He does have his detractors. I've been active in Slovak hockey, representing Slovak players for around 30 years. And I'm a huge fan of his. And I give a lot of credit to the program revitalizing to him, and to him specifically. So hats off to Miro. He's done an incredible job. And I would add, by the way, Miro Satan Jr. is a 6'7" forward playing for Shawinigan in the Quebec Junior League, drafted by the Washington Capitals. And I work with him right now.
Wow. Well, let me run through just some
and
of the names.
I held Miro Satan Jr. in my arms when he was 6 weeks old.
That's
he's now a 6'7" forward.
Wow. And a nice guy too.
Great guy.
Oh,
Great
that's
guy.
so. Let me run through some of the names that are Slovakian names too, just very quickly. Because Allan, I think you're right. Like there's not. I think you're right. I know you're right. They were such a factor in the NHL when I was growing up, and for it to fall off the way that it did, and for it to come back in these Olympics, I think it's been one of the stories of the tournament. Now, I'm not going to include Stan Mikita in this because he left when he was 8. He was born in what is now Slovakia, Czechoslovakia back then, but he learned to play hockey in Canada and represented Canada internationally. So we're going to move to Peter Stastny, Marian Hossa, Peter Bondra, Marian Gaborik, one of your clients, Pavel Dimitra, Miroslav Satan, Ziggy Palfi, Zdeno Chara, Josef Stumpel, Anton Stastny, Thomas Tatar, still playing, Lubomir Vishnowsky, Michael Handzus, Richard Zednik, Robert Svela, Leaf great for one season. Ladislav Nagy, Marian Stasny, Peter Inacek, Andrei Sekera, Zdeno Seeger, who's got one of the best stories ever that Allan told once back in the day. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. And it was just such a what a great surprise, the way they caught the Finns in the first game of the tournament. And I think it's sort of perfect that, we're recording this right before it. The teams that met at the beginning are going to meet at the end. And I think that this is kind of, I don't know if you could ever, either team would call it the perfect bronze medal game because they want to be playing for gold, but it's about as perfect as it can get in terms of a full circle moment, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It was awesome. I'm so glad to hear that it's going well, because I think back home here in Canada, obviously the United States has not handled it all that great, as you said, on the broadcast side, but it's been, it's taken over the country, both the men's and the women's side. And, and I'm
glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because we haven't talked about the women's side, and we should.
We need to.
The hockey was amazing. Mm-hmm. And the women players, they've got great stories behind them. Mm-hmm. And really, I think that we want to talk about the growth of hockey as a sport. You cannot in any way discount the growth of women's hockey in bringing new fans into the game for everyone.
Yes. Well, and I think too, I was watching the games, and Jesse was doing the streams for them for SDPN. And, they were obviously extremely well attended, and people are passionate and that sort of thing. But what was interesting about it for me was, like, this is the foundational generation of women hockey players in North America specifically, to get, the many, many years, the Dream Gap tour that the PWHPA had to do. There was split leagues at one point. There was the NWHL and the CWHL. Yeah. And they were against each other, and it was people were pitting them against each other. And it was so white hot to even talk about it, even on our podcasts. It was like, if you say one thing, then one side's going to be mad at you. If you say another thing, another side's going to be mad. The Mary Philippe Poulins, the Hillary Knights of the world, who are greatest of all time in their category players, greatest. Yes. It's impossible to imagine. Like, you think about the accomplishments that Hillary Knight and Mary Philippe Poulin, if you just look at their elite prospects page and you go across the bottom, how many golds, how many world championship silvers, bronze, this and that, and player of the year awards for the entire international community. We are going to see a changing of the guard here soon. It's very likely that in 2030, Allan, we're not going to get Mary Philippe Poulin or Hillary Knight. And if we do get them, they'll be at the tail end. And so I thought this year's tournament was really spectacular and special, because the PWHL is not only established and expanding, which they did, with a couple of new cities this year. These people that worked so hard to get it done were sort of the biggest factor at the tournament, the biggest stars. And then, because pro sports goes by in a flash, it'll be somebody else's turn next Olympics. And I just, I think, Allan, you're at the games, you're seeing legends, people that we're going to be talking about 50 years from now, right?
For sure. But what you said is very profound. It would be concerning if there was no one coming to take the places of these legends. But there's so many people now playing women's hockey at the youth level, and having opportunities to play at the NCAA level or at the women's professional level, that there is a group of people coming to who the torch will be passed to, that we will be talking about in 2030. Yes,
absolutely. And, it's the women we watched today who established this league, they were watching, like I was watching, the Haley Wickenheisers of the world when we were growing up at the, right. And how clutch and unbelievable those players were. So it was a very cool tournament on that side of things too. And obviously on the women's side, it is a bit of a 2-horse race at the top. It's always Canada, United States, but you are starting to see other programs start to catch up. And, you see it on the men's side too. You look at the Swiss program, women's and men's. That's a small country. And the fact that the Swiss men's team could have gotten into a quarterfinal, no problem. They just happened to lose. The Swiss women's team, obviously, into the bronze medal game. I'm curious about hockey in Europe from your perspective, Allan. Some of these programs are really taking off. We talked about Germany. We talked about Germany with JJ Peterka. We talked about Switzerland. How are they doing it over there? Because obviously it's been Canada, United States, Sweden, Finland, Russia when they're involved. But there's a lot more countries just kind of jumping on board. Do you have any sense of why that is, how that is, where it's coming from? Is the interest up? Is the financing finally there? What can you attribute that to?
I think each of these countries, Germany and Switzerland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, these countries have an incredible hockey tradition going back 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Mm-hmm. And, you look at some of the stories and photos and the people that were involved in hockey back in the 1950s and 1960s, it was always there.
Yeah.
But now it's become more commercialized. The leagues have become more of a business in all of these different countries. I mean, you go to a game in Cologne, Germany, and they've got a state-of-the-art Anschutz built, AEG built 18,000 seat arena that is packed with rabid fans. And you go there and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. But with the growth of hockey globally, these traditions, this culture has been able to rise to the top. And I think hockey, baseball is only going to grow so much globally.
Right.
You've got Japan, you've got Venezuela,
Korea.
You've got, Cuba, you've got pockets of areas, Mexico, where players are playing the game and it's incredibly popular. But really, hockey is poised. You got billions of people in Asia who have not been exposed to the game, who will be over the next 25, 30, 40 years. And you have areas of Europe where the NHL game needs to come to them more than just playing a game or two and disappearing.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, on the World Cup side, I'm hearing a lot of preparations have already been made.
Okay.
There should be a host European city that will host basically half the tournament.
Cool.
There will be a host North American city or two that will host 4 teams on the North American side. And then the teams that are based in Europe in the World Cup will then come over and play a semifinal and final in North America.
Okay.
But those games in Europe, I think will be very well attended. There's going to be 4 teams based over there. And this World Cup is finally, co-owned by NHL and NHLPA, going to become an event on the hockey calendar that will be there every 4 years and become just as significant on the calendar as an Olympics.
Is it? Did you say there was 4 teams in Europe? That are
There's going to be 8 teams in total, 4 in Europe, 4 in North America.
Okay, so are there going to be the stunt teams? You think, like the team North America Young Guns that they had in 2016, and Team Europe, which was an amalgamation of countries? Do you think?
I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Okay. All right. We don't know yet. All right. Fair enough. Okay. And, because I've always said, Allan, and I know, again, I know you can't comment on it specifically, but I think, and I know the NHL wants to promote its own people, but I think having a tournament, like, I wish they wouldn't think small. And what I mean by that is only having 8 teams to me seems like a waste. Not a waste. It's going to be great. Like, we know that's going to be awesome. But why can't it be 16? Why can't it be 20? I mean, there's enough professional hockey players over there that there's plenty of teams that'd be filled out and great. I do want to know what Slovenia, who's been involved, Austria, who's been involved, Kazakhstan, Great Britain is climbing the IIHF rankings. We got to see Italy and France play, right? That was cool. I hope the NHL recognizes and the PA recognizes how great that was and what an opportunity for fans and scouts to find players like a Damian Clara, who's a 3rd-round pick of the Anaheim Ducks, who stole the tournament for the Italians. They didn't win a game, but he was a hero. He was amazing. There's Smits on Latvia, who's supposed to go top 10, top 15 this year, who's like, 17, 18 years old playing for the Latvian team. He's 6'7". I can't believe it. That's not fair. Those types of stories, if the NHL walls itself off to just NHL players, you really do miss that magic. And you get that when you play, like when the Soccer World Cup happens. And I know it's a far more ubiquitous game, but you get those players that go on like a Cinderella run. And even if their team goes nowhere, they blow you away. And all of a sudden they're transferred to a major club in the EPL or Bundesliga or, in the Spanish league or whatever. Like that part of it, it's like, oh man, that's a great player and we've ignored them. We should give them a shot in North America next fall, right? Like that's the part that I hope the NHL recognizes. It doesn't sound like they will, but hopefully one day they will.
Well, I think the issue is, when international hockey first came on the scene, involving NHL players going all the way back to the 72 Summit Series, it was always something that was played in September before the start of the season. And now we're talking about a shutting down of the NHL season for 2.5 to 3 weeks and playing the tournament in February when players are in top shape and all eyes are on hockey without any competing. You don't have football going on. You don't have the end of the baseball season, playoffs and World Series to contend with. You sort of capture the sports calendar and grab a space that of which there was nothing really going on except NHL regular season, NBA regular season, and now you've got this incredible tournament in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Doing that, I think, and given the fact that it's an NHLPA co-owned event, the focus is on NHL players playing for their countries, and going anything beyond 8 teams, even the 4 nations which gave us all a taste of best on best finally.
Yes.
After this, huge void, this 2016 was the last World Cup before we had 4 nations last year. And now Olympics, and then 2028 World Cup of hockey, and then 2030 Olympics again. We finally got an international calendar. We finally have reliable, predictable, best on best NHL players playing for their countries, which is what everybody has been. The players have been yearning for it, the fans, the media. And I think people on the league side finally recognize the great value of having this on the calendar every 2 years.
So you're saying count my blessings and one step at a time.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, Allan, listen, unless there's anything else you'd like to hit, it's great to see you again. Miss you, and glad it was a great tournament.
I would just like to add one thing in closing.
Please.
Actually two things. For a later date, we're going to have a detailed discussion of what the hell is going on at the MLB Players Association.
Yes.
There's been major news on that front with Tony Clark, their longtime executive director, resigning his position. Bruce Meyer, who I know, who worked at the NHLPA for about 2 years. Bruce is now the interim executive director. He was the chief labor negotiator. Ian Penny is there, former interim executive director of the NHLPA, longtime NHLPA executive, is the senior advisor. Matt Nussbaum is general counsel. He formerly was at the NHLPA. And he's general counsel at the MLBPA. So basically the NHLPA appears to be the training ground for all these people who are now running the Major League Baseball Players Association. But there's been a lot of upheaval. The
and a huge work
CBA
stoppage on the way.
expires in December. CBA expires in December. And by everybody's account, we are heading for labor Armageddon. And it's certainly worthy of discussing some of the key issues around the salary cap that are going to be at the forefront over the next several months. And we'll discuss that in depth and maybe bring on a guest who's going to be directly involved in those negotiations at some point. And last but not least, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band have announced a U.S. tour of around 20 plus shows to kick off in Minneapolis, March 31st. I will be there, along with 2 shows in LA, April 7 and 9. I will be there as well. And as you can see, I'm really excited to have Bruce and the band back on the road playing live shows.
That is awesome. So if you are going to Bruce Springsteen this year, we're going to play a little game called Where's Walshy? And if you spot Allan in the crowd, we'll give you a little shout out in the on the show. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that do, Allan.
Go to a show and you're pretty likely going to see me there.
Okay. Allan, thanks so much for your time as always, and looking forward to catching up again. There is some really interesting stuff on the horizon. You're absolutely right about that. There's some sports business stuff I'll want to hit the next step. There's plenty on the go, still to go. And good luck. We're going to talk to you before trade deadline, but I know when we come back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and obviously hockey comes back Wednesday, I know you're going to be under the gun a little bit here. I know it's your least favorite time of the season. So best of luck.
Thank you. There you go. We'll do an episode next week, and we'll start focusing on trade deadline and what's going on, what I'm hearing behind the scenes.
Perfect. We'll see you then.
This has been Agent Provocateur with Allan Walsh and Adam Wylde. Follow Allan Walsh on Twitter @WalshA. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts by searching Agent Provocateur and hitting the subscribe button. YouTube.com/SDPN.